The Red River Farm Network is excited to celebrate women's role in agriculture throughout the month of March. I'm farm broadcaster Whitney Pittman, and we're going to talk with Rebecca Sipp today. We are just north of Ada, Minnesota. Let's talk about your role in agriculture, your history with agriculture. How did you become involved in this industry?
So I started farming full-time in 2017, but I would have never expected to. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister, and I currently farm with my youngest brother and my sister and my folks. And I grew up being somewhat involved in the farm, especially during planting season and harvest time, just getting out when they needed, but it wasn't the responsible, like you're not responsible for what's going on. You just, we need a tractor driver. And so you go out for that. But then my brothers most of them moved into other businesses. And my youngest brother was only 18 at the time. And my sister and I really wanted to see the farm stick around. So we decided to jump in with him and keep it going. And it's been great. Both to work with my siblings and my folks, that's really the only reason I farm, is because I actually get to do it with family. And I enjoy so many other things about farming, but if they weren't here, it would make it a lot more difficult, a lot more stressful, and I don't think I'd want to do it on my own. So, yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that you are able to kind of bounce ideas, and having that guidance is I'm sure really great just to be with family often, and also having the knowledge there to back you up when you need it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it can come with some conflict sometimes as we farm for longer periods of time. All of a sudden you have opinions about things because you understand how things work, but that's a good thing. Like, we all come with our different ideas, and it's the point of being humble with each other and having that communication and being willing to listen, which, I mean, you get into a really busy time and it's like things get more stressful, but it's when you own a farm and you're responsible for it, you have to realize that everyone actually cares about the business, which if you have hired hands, some people have great hired hands who really do care about the business, but when it's your family, you know that people are coming from a place of, I really care about what's going on here, and that's why I have an opinion about this.
So talk a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like here on the farm. Of course, in farming, it's not the same day is not going to happen in February or March that does in July or November. So just kind of typically, what are some of the things that you try to get done throughout the year, maybe, is a better look at it?
Yeah, no, actually, that's one of the things I do really enjoy about farming is how it is so different all the time. You're not doing one thing all the time. But I mean, okay, during wintertime right now, I have a lot of book work and a lot of farm meetings. And I've started to get out to the shop. When we get through the first of the year, that's kind of the time period that's really very focused on book work. And we've had more this year because my dad is taking his feet out a little bit, but he'll always keep his hands in, so that's good. Normal day this time of year, I'll probably get up. Sometimes I go to the gym right away early in the morning, and I'll get home and have breakfast. And sometimes I read my Bible. Sometimes you get on with things in the day. And I'll probably do books in the morning or a meeting, depending on what's going on. And that's kind of this time of year. You get into Spring's work. It's busy. It's very busy. Early mornings, and we try to quit around dark when we're planting. Things can go wrong. I know we have lights, but things can go wrong after dark. You just can't see everything that's happening. And honestly, my dad's been great about that over the years of making sure he just feels like everyone can get the job done well when you're not super tired. And you are putting a lot on the line still. You're still very tired, but making sure that you're getting that sleep is important, and I feel like it's actually more productive during the day. People can handle things better and keep their mind focused if you have a little bit extra sleep. And it's not extra sleep, it's just enough sleep. So, long days during springtime, and that can go anywhere from, these last 2 years have been late. We haven't gotten in until middle of May or something, but that can start the end of April, or When I've been farming, we haven't planted in March, but it has been done in the past week or putting that in. But you're looking at crop insurance dates for crops of looking at when you want to get in the field. And so, April, May, even into June. June gets really busy again. It seems like you go directly from planting into spraying. And so it's not quite as stressful as the planting time, but you're definitely putting some hours in and making that transition even from planting to the spraying. It's like you're trying to make sure that you wrap up things well with the planters, and because you can throw them in the shed and not have them winterized and then think, oh, winter comes and we did that. And so you want to make sure during that time period that you don't put things away until they're ready to go, and then having sprayers ready and things like that. So summertime with the sugar beets, they're definitely it takes more time spraying. Mm-hmm. We have a lot more fungicide, and you have roots, and so you're dealing with insects as well. Root maggot was a huge thing for us this last year, and thankfully everything that we had done seemed to pay off, and we didn't actually see that much damage. But so spray time during the summertime, you're doing a lot of scouting, and you don't want to spray if you don't have to, and you want to spray if it's necessary. So making that call, Dad had me do a lot more of the scouting last year, and he was like, your call, like you do it, which I realized. I was like, oh, this is really stressful. like deciding to make this call to do it or to not do it. All of a sudden you're realizing, oh, this is stressful. So it was good to see that, and I'm glad he allowed me to do that in that way, because this year it's looking like he's stepping back a little bit more. Like I said, I'm guessing he'll still be spraying and combining and out there the whole step of the way. But yeah.
So I know you talked about sugar beets, a little bit about wheat, but what all do you produce here on the farm?
We grow wheat, sugar beets, soybeans, and corn. And rotation. Our wheat is mainly for our sugar beet acres, and so that kind of is in comparison. And we were heavy on corn last year. I think everybody kind of was, and we'll be heavy on soybeans this year if everything goes according to plan. I mean, you can only change things up so much. We put on most of our P and K and some of our N last fall, so you can't go throw soybeans on a field that you already planned corn on. But I mean, the spring can change things up too. You don't know exactly what's going to be happening.
So talk a little bit more about, you talked winter meeting season, and of course you had the opportunity to chat with you at several of them here this winter. What is the importance of being involved in that? Different organizations, of course, hosting a lot of those. What is your involvement on that level of things as you're taking over a few more decisions here on the farm too? Yeah,
I think it's very dynamic reasons why. It's not just one reason. For obviously you're going there to learn. And I've gone to multiple meetings with the same speaker, and even if they're speaking on the same topic, they can sometimes bring up a different study or something else. A lot of times there's farmers in the crowd who will ask questions. And I really love that, because it brings out something that would usually not even be in it, and people discuss it, or you can even go directly to that farmer and be like, hey, tell me about it. And I love the learning part. It's also connecting, which kind of goes with asking the questions, but just connecting with other farmers. And every farm is a little bit different, and how they do things is different. And not everything is going to work on your farm, but something might. And so just being open to changing up things and looking at new ideas. And even if you don't agree with the idea, it's also, oh, this is why I wouldn't do that. And and simply, like people talk about, just getting your voice out there on different things. If you don't say something, if you do disagree with something and you don't say something about it, the idea is never going to get out there. So, just communicating with people, getting to know people, learning things from people. I like the in-person. I don't do virtual stuff very well. I think if I put on a virtual meeting, it would be, I'd probably just lose track of it and I'd start doing something else. So yeah, I like in person.
Yeah. So, talk about your role models. You've talked about working with your family a lot, and I'm sure they've got a really a lot of input on how you've been brought up and what you do now. But those specific role models, who are they, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I would have to put my mom and my dad at the top of the list, honestly, for different reasons. Both of them. My mom really brought a lot of joy to the farm. Between making the meals, like when you're super hungry, or just even when we were younger, she would bring a picnic out to the field, and Dad would stop for a little bit in the field, and we'd enjoy that. And it brought out a fun side of farming that isn't always there for people. And that's kind of why I farm, is because I loved it so much. And my dad brought out a great side of farming too, but my mom just complimented that. And she was always there, like if my dad needed parts and she needed to run for parts, or when they were first married, she was, out in the field with him. But having kids kind of changed that up a little bit. Like everything wasn't possible in that way, but she's an excellent role model. And my dad, there's so many things that they say that the oldest daughter is the female form of the father. And sometimes I feel that, like, I have things of my mom in me as well, definitely. But I see my dad in me a lot sometimes, and that's a good thing. My dad's not perfect, but he's a great farmer. I learn a lot from him, and he's patient. Not that he is always patient, but I remember a time when I was probably 12, and it was one of those times they needed a topper driver out in the field, and I went and ran topper, and we were still running scalpers. And this is probably the most major thing I have ever done on the farm. And I backed up with the scalpers down, and I was just like, I can't believe I just did this. And my dad, I was like, Dad, I did something. And he's like, what did you do? And I backed up with the scalpers. He's like, okay, we'll go pull them off. And I was just like, he didn't get upset at me. He was just like, he was literally like, you're okay. Like, you didn't get hurt. I'm just glad you're okay. And we'll work with this. And that part of him is, he's a great teacher. A lot of farmers, I think, would have a hard time even looking at the possibility of their daughter stepping in on the farm. And my dad has never been that way at all. He's the one that will toss the magazines on the table that have a woman farmer and be like, hey, take a look at this. There's somebody else doing this. And so yeah, they are definitely my role models. Honestly, the people around me are. I look at my siblings, all of my brothers. They even, after they left the farm, they've gotten into different things that they're doing, and I can learn so much from their businesses and what they're doing, and yeah. So I mean, you already kind of touched on a memorable experience, but are there any others that kind of jump out to you? I know we were talking about scouting fields here kind of off camera, and how much you enjoy that, and those types of things. So what else is there that is just really worth mentioning and kind of tells your farm story? Boy, I don't know that I have something off the top of my head really quick.
Well, we can certainly talk about too. So you talked about those magazines and seeing other women farmers that are out there doing this every day. Mm-hmm. What is your advice to other women in agriculture that maybe don't feel like they have a voice, or maybe feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure if that's something I could do? Here you are setting that example.
It does take a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment. I think I did mention this before. It takes humbleness, because even if you feel like, sometimes I've gotten the feeling like when you are a girl, you go to a farm meeting, there's a lot more girls than there used to be, definitely. But when you go to the elevator or wherever, you do feel like I am the only girl here, and then you feel like everyone's watching me, and then what if I make a mistake? And it came down to realizing it doesn't matter. Like, part of this is a pride thing on my part. If I make a mistake, I look stupid, right? And realizing I needed humility in my life was really, it just made my interaction with people realizing most people, when they see you farming and they see you put your head to it and that you're working, I do feel a lot of respect from people in the area. And that doesn't, I don't think that it has to do with me being a woman necessarily. It just means, you know, when somebody does put work in, it is recognized. And being a woman, it's like there's some things that that are more difficult. I mean, obviously I'm not physically as strong and to go and do some things, it is more difficult. And there's things that I call out Paul. I'm like, I could try to fix this, but it'll take me 3 hours and it'll take you 30 minutes right now. And we're in the middle of harvest, you know? And so there's things like that. And then there's times where he's like, we go to pick up a part somewhere and it's a big part. And he's like, I'm going to send you girls in because I know they'll help you out, you know? And seriously, there's so many parts guys that are just super nice. You know, you'll run into an occasional one that's like, what are you doing in this kind of business or whatever? But you have to look at the opposite side. I know women who look at men and go like, what are you doing? Kind of a thing too. So I, for the most part, have felt very welcomed by the farming community and actually extremely helped. You know, there's things that I definitely don't know on the farm, and every single year you learn more and you learn more of what you don't know. Yeah, I really appreciate everyone in the area who has put the time into, like, when I go into the parts store and I bring a bearing and they're like, oh, do you need this seal possibly too? Or do you need the locking crawler with this? And I'm like, oh, I might need that one. And they know what I need sometimes better than I do. And again, it comes back to that humility, because I could look and go, like, I should have known that. And then you can feel kind of stupid for doing something that was, you know, messed up, when a guy would have gone in there and already knew what he needed. And yeah, I think just be humble, work hard, and let your actions and words work together, and it'll speak for itself. You're not going to necessarily see it right away, but you be diligent with it and it'll come around.
And I know faith is something that's really important to you too. And how does that kind of fit into your daily life here on the farm?
Yeah, I think even when you asked me previously of like why I like farming, that's another thing. I like farming. When you read the Bible, there's so many things about farmers and planting seeds and watching the crops grow and all the nutrients that you need. And when I go check fields, it's like you see all of that. Like, are there imbalances in the soil? Is it missing something? And it's amazing for me to see how God created everything and how it all works together. And if you're missing something, how things get out of balance and how it doesn't work together. And I don't care if it's an animal and like it's needing something, or if it's the ground and it's needing something, or the plant, and how, it has this, you know, like some soil has iron in it, but it doesn't have the ability to break down the iron. So what else does it need? And when you see how it all needs to be there to work together, I love that. I feel like it just shows the picture of God and how he created everything so complex, and yet in a way it's simplistic there as well. Like it all makes sense. And I mean, there's the whole other aspect of simply learning to trust God in everything, because something as simple as rain. There's times that you're like, Lord, we need rain, and we might need rain. But like this last year, we got a crop that I would have never expected. And even if we hadn't gotten the crop, God still knows what we need, and he's going to provide it. But we were talking before this of like waiting on God's timing and reasons to wait on God's timing. And it is, you know, with the conflict that we have going on in Israel and with Palestine, in the Bible, I was just reading how, you know, Abraham and Sarah did not wait in the timing that God had asked of them. They wanted to have a child. And so now you have Ishmael, who's the father of the Arabs, and you have Isaac, who's the father of the Israelites. And they're still fighting to this day. And you're living with the consequences of that in life. And so when you're looking at the fields it might not rain, but you have that timing of God there, and he sees the bigger picture on everything. And I just think it's a very real way of, like, I know in other jobs you have to trust God too, like he's gonna overcome it, but somehow being outside, you're like nothing between you and him. So yeah, I really enjoy that part of it.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to mention? Any other stories to include here before we let you go?
I think farming is probably one of the best ways of life for anyone. And I know it's a lot of work, but I've seen it push families apart, and I've seen it pull families together. And you can kind of choose which way you want to go with it, and you have to take time for it if you want it to build your family together. So if you want a really, really great life, stick to it because it's really good. It's really good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and talk about your experience in agriculture. Again, Rebecca Sipp joining us here for Agricult-HER. Agricult-HER is made possible by the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council. Thanks for joining us here on the Red River Farm Network.